Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we got another treasure trove of customer data.
Treasure trove, yes.
I mean, come on. It
is good stuff.
It's good stuff. But, you know, instead of making you go on some, like, elaborate hunt where it marks the spot or you got to go underwater or solve some puzzles.
Or click through to 5 different articles.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you going with this?
It's going to be an article on our BlueStar Nation blog.
Yes.
You may be familiar by now. If you're not, shame on you. You should be checking out nation.bluestarinc.com.
Absolutely.
To look into our amazing end user surveys that we are constantly doing. We try to do at least 3 or 4 of these a year or so, where we go out and get some good data from actual end users. Yeah. This time it's grocery stores.
Aha.
So we went out there and we got some data from tier 2 and 3 level grocery
Which
stores.
I like. Yes.
So the folks that our folks probably work with.
Yes.
The VARs that we know. Spend time with. Basically, we just wanted to understand a little bit more about the technology that they're currently using, especially stuff that address customer experience. What they do and don't have, what they're considering. What they would like to have if money wasn't an object. Obviously, there's going to be some tech opportunities.
We asked that question. If money was no object, what would you like to have?
Yes, there is a question. Like,
did Lamborghini make the results?
We gave them some multiple choices. Because if you leave it open ended, you're going to get some interesting stuff, which could make for a fun conversation.
But exactly. Yes,
not something that gives you good, useful data. I think that we're looking for here.
Got it.
So we're going to find out that kind of stuff. We're going to find out where there's some opportunities for VARs to go after. Some potential new wins by understanding what they're looking to improve, what they're currently using as far as devices go, and some of the challenges that they have. And then we got a few other random topics. Tech related topics, maybe about like the future of technology and where they are sitting with that and what they think might impact their industry.
Do we bring up AI or robots?
Of course we do. I mean, AI, of course. Of course. I don't think it's not allowed. You're not allowed to have a technology conversation without bringing up AI.
Absolutely. Even grocery stores.
Need
some AI.
That's right.
There it is.
So good stuff. We're going to do a nice deep dive here and dig into some of this data. And of course, you can always check out the show notes and find a link to the overall survey to do a little exploration yourself. All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's TEConnecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we got this amazing survey, and I do want to give a quick shout out to Intel and HP, who put together the funding and the sponsorship for this particular survey. We appreciate them reaching out to us to get these responses from grocery store attendants.
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, then let's start off, Dean, we always like to talk about the methodology behind these surveys. So that people know who exactly we contacted, what we were looking for, what kind of people we wanted to get out of this. And again, I think we found the kind of folks that our VARs are going to be interested, especially if they work on the SMB side of grocery, which again, I think a lot of our folks probably do that we
only so many people can service tier 1, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's talk to the tier 2.
And they tend to be pretty embedded with what they want. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Right. That's right.
So again, we particularly made sure we were reaching tier 2 and 3 level
kudos to you guys.
Stores.
That's great.
That's anywhere from 25 up to 499 total locations. I'd say the bulk of them, the bulk of responses, maybe around 70 some odd % or whatever, were from that 25 to 99 range of locations. So quite a bit on that. Again, on that smaller side where they've got a decent amount of stores, but they're not like the mega corporations necessarily out there.
I'm envisioning like regional, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the regional ones that you're familiar with in your area, you go to the other side of the country and they're not there. And then, of course, as far as the type of folks we wanted to reach, we looked for director and above, so director, C-suite, VP, head, that kind of stuff, in either IT, operations, or again at the executive levels. And again, a nice broad swath of all of those. About even splits of who we got from each of those.
Well, I was impressed we got as many executives as we did. Almost 25% of the executive owners. These are people that know.
Yeah. And the ones that are going to make these decisions.
That's right.
This kind of stuff
That's right.
So that's your heads up on who we reached out to here. Again, I think a good swath of people that are the decision makers, the shakers, the movers, and the people that probably have a lot of insight into what's happening in their stores and what they would like to accomplish. All right, let's dive into. I'm going to kind of run down through some data of customer experience questions that we asked. We asked several questions related to customer experience. One of the first ones is basically kind of like what they're currently offering. We gave them a list of offerings, including like loyalty programs, self-checkout, personalized marketing, grocery pickup. The overwhelming winner of like the most usage was personalized marketing, followed shortly after by mobile apps and online shopping, loyalty programs, and grocery and home delivery. All of those had at least above 60% of respondents saying that they were offering one of those, at least one of those in their locations. So I think those three really stood out. Not too far behind was grocery pickup. I mean, usually if they're doing home delivery, there's probably pickup
some kind of pickup in there too.
But that was a little closer to about 50% of respondents that said they were doing that. Much, much lower, and I'll get to more of this in a moment. Much more on the lower end was self-checkout and cashierless checkout. Only about a combined maybe 30% of the respondents were doing either of those. Then, kind of relatedly, we asked, hey, what would you like to offer in the future if you could offer
gotcha.
Some new technology to improve customer experience? And the top two responses, their top three responses, were again all related to checkout-related stuff. Self-checkout, checkout free shopping, or cashierless checkout, which kind of sort of the same, those last two, but the differentiation.
I was going to ask about that. Checkout free or cashierless.
The whole thing with like the Amazon store where it's literally just you can just grab and walk out. Versus maybe ones where it's you're still doing some of the work, but you don't even have to have an attendant there necessarily. The ones that do like maybe a lot of camera stuff or whatever to keep people honest, if you will. Those were easily the top three responses of what they wanted to have, but not far behind that was stuff like home delivery and pickup, the mobile app stuff as well. So I will say on those two, and we'll get into more of that I think in a moment here, I found it very interesting that not as many were offering the self-checkout and the cashierless checkout options, but clearly the bulk of these folks actually did want to offer that. That's something they were interested in their stores. So a leading indicator, maybe, I don't know. Exactly. So I thought that was an interesting, that alternate checkout option is something they're considering. And the last part of the kind of experience thing we asked about was the acquisition of customer data, because we know this is becoming more and more important in retail in general.
Absolutely.
If you recall, we just had, David Dobson on, a couple weeks back from Intel talking about how, the retailers know that they can collect as much data as they need to when someone's shopping online, but replicating that in store is getting harder than ever. So we asked, hey, where are you currently collecting data from your customers? And overwhelmingly, most of them said at the point of sale or checkout. Kind of makes sense. That's the easy way to get some data. If someone buys something and they use their credit card or loyalty card or whatever, you can directly associate that with that particular person. 83% of respondents said that they used opt-in marketing as one of their options. But then to a much lesser extent, you had stuff like, 63% still said they use website and app traffic for their customer data. Again, I get that one maybe being a little bit lower because, grocery stores don't necessarily always have, the website or an app experience to go with for their customers. And then only 15% said they're using any kind of in-store cameras or sensors for data collection at this point. So that's the customer service experience, kind of the customer experience part of this conversation. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Let's work in reverse, my man.
Right.
So, when you think about the respondents, I was curious about, I'm going to start with the last one first. So how do you currently collect customer data? 80% of respondents said they use point of sale data. I was thinking to myself, initially I was like, well, duh.
Right.
And that's kind of old school. Like, it's POS data, of course, but you just made the connection to loyalty programs, which is fair.
Right.
And now I'm making the connection to the other thing that was called out. The very first question is the personalized marketing. So I think that it tells me that the grocery stores have rudimentary marketing down, meaning I am a persona, Dean. Right. Dean bought these things from the point of sale data, and then we're going to market these things to Dean because he likes these things.
This credit card has been used for this kind of purchases in the past. Ergo, let's market this.
Right. So clearly, I'm connecting those dots. Would you agree that that's probably the...
But to your point again, kind of simplistic, may not be 100% accurate.
Yep.
but better than doing nothing.
Better than nothing. Yeah. That's right. Right. And now I'm envisioning all these coupons that I do get that are like, hey, you bought this kind of a thing. Now, what's curious though is that, in order to take all this to the next level, and if you believe the fact that retail media networks and we're getting more sophisticated on the analytics that we can do through the camera and in-store, which by the way, only 15% of people said they're using this.
Knock opportunity.
That's right. But this is the type of data that's going to give you intent or things like that, right? We're getting into like intent data on our marketing where we're sniffing around or using tools to see where maybe people intend to, meaning they're making buying signals earlier in
Even
the process.
Even if they aren't doing it necessarily.
Right. Maybe they're doing some research on something or something like that. So when you use camera technology and you see that people are maybe hovering around a display, but they're not buying it, but they're hovering, so there's interest and stuff like that. I think that, obviously grocers are going to have to get a little bit more sophisticated in the use of some of that technology to facilitate that, don't you?
Yeah.
So I was a little bit 15%. I guess that's correct. And anyway, we should have asked, do you intend to use something like that coming up in the past or in the near future?
Yeah.
Website stuff. Some of the other stuff was relatively straightforward, but the loyalty programs for sure. But I'm with you. There's a couple things on the pickup, the delivery, and the self-checkout. Let's keep going because it's interesting how some of these are panning out a little bit. Yeah.
I would also be incredibly curious what these numbers looked like pre-COVID, especially the pickup and home delivery side. Yeah. I have a feeling had we done the same kind of survey then, those numbers would have been dramatically smaller than they currently are.
Agreed.
Which obviously we understand why that particularly happened, but I will say the self-checkout part is interesting because, and I think it's two things part of it here, which is one. We had obviously the question where people indicated that they are very much interested in offering that kind of stuff in the future, but yet they're clearly not, which I think is interesting because you start hearing about these different stories and, just like a little bit of angst and rumors that, and again, maybe it's something that just like, the media is kind of blowing up in a different way based on, random stores here and there or whatever, which is that.
Or tier one.
Right. Which is that they don't like self-checkout, that they're actually annoyed by it, that it's creating increased, shrink and theft. They're annoyed they have to have folks manning it. Stuff is always breaking down. It's become more troublesome than it should be. And you're starting to hear about some stores that are in fact even just flat out taking it out.
Or minimizing.
So I thought like initially when I started first looking at this data, and I saw that like, oh, well, hey, that seems like as adding up here, not many grocery stores are still actually using it. But then I got to the next question, and you have 50, I guess 35% said they want to offer self-checkout, 27% are interested in checkout-free shopping, 23% cashierless. So clearly there is an interest in it. So it's not. I don't think that backlash that we've been hearing about is quite accurate. It may just be that, to your point, maybe it's just some isolated incidences, or maybe some of the tier one stores that are struggling with managing it when they've got so many people coming through, but that down on the slightly SMB level of grocer, that they're still seeing potential value in this, to drive some more sales and get more people moved through quickly.
That's a good point. I think that they do feel the pressure that's coming from the tier one, but I sat back and thought about it. Well, why is it that they would like to offer, but they don't right now? You got to think of things like maybe the cost is still too high. Maybe it's difficult to implement in the sense that, whenever you do this self-checkout type of stuff, you still need resources either monitoring it or available if something goes wrong. It's not like it's this perfect technology that's completely without error type of a thing.
It's not the Amazon store that we found out was being run by folks in another country,
which was a mirage. Yes, exactly. So I still think there's some trepidation, but there's still the need, especially on the tier 2, 3, to feel the need to appeal to a broad range of people, those that would like to still do the self-checkout type of scenario. Look, it's really convenient when you only have a few items. You got to pop in real quick. I got 10 things or less. I'm self-checkouting out. That type of a thing. It's easy, and so I still think that there's obviously the need to do that.
Yep. And also though, I feel like that's the kind of data that I think when we get to the data side of things again, that how handy would it be to understand what are the common grab and go items? Like, what is the person that normally does, like me, who normally does almost all of my grocery shopping online for delivery or pickup? Those times when I go to the store, why am I going to the store? Is it just to fill in something I missed? Is it for particular items that I just don't get through grocery or can't, or through delivery, and or just can't, something like that.
Maybe it's
That's
produce.
the kind of, yeah, exactly. That's the kind of data that I think would be extremely valuable for them to be able to figure out, like, hey, why are people usually coming in this atmosphere where they're getting pickup or delivery instead? What's making them still come to the store? And how can we maybe change the way our stores are laid out to accommodate that, or change change the product mix in some way to accommodate that, so that when people come in store, they have just as good of an experience as they do with the delivery portion of things or something. So,
and I think it's around that word experience, right?
Yep.
So one stat though that's not in here, I did look up self-checkout right now. It's 38% of grocers in 2022 had self-checkout. So
okay.
That's a pretty big number. 38%, that's getting there.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's not too far off in aligning with what we saw here. So
that's right. Yep.
So hey, that means our data is good.
Right.
Other folks that have done the same kind of deep dive and survey have come up with the same data. So see, there you go. Why go spend millions of dollars or thousands of dollars?
We got it right here. Yeah.
For something from some super survey company when BlueStar can deliver it for you also.
There you go.
All right, well, let's get into the opportunities portion here, because I mean, this is, I think, obviously stuff that most people are coming to this like, hey, what's in this for me? Where am I potentially going to find some new business with grocers, or talking points that I can go to them with based on the survey data? So, a couple of questions we asked around this. One, what areas of your business technology are you most interested in improving? 49%, so almost half respondents, said customer engagement.
Yes.
Another 37% said customer preference data analysis. So again, that deep dive on data. 35% said inventory management, and then 26% said loss prevention. Then you have a little bit, lower quantities that said POS checkout, store layout and design, and sustainability and food waste. But I think those top two clearly stand on the customer engagement and data analysis side on that one in particular there.
Yep.
Going down a little bit further, we asked some questions about the mobile devices in use, because like, hey, we know that most stores at this point have some kind of mobile devices that they're asking their associates to walk around with and use for one thing or another, especially if they do offer pickup or delivery or something. There's a lot that goes into that. So we asked, hey, what are you commonly using? Is it barcode scanners? Is it mobile receipt printers? Is it enterprise mobile devices or consumer devices? 81% of respondents said they were using barcode scanners. Kind of makes sense at this point.
Yep.
And again, we asked for mobile in particular. And 79% said they were using mobile label or receipt printers, which I thought was a good number. And then 50% said enterprise mobile devices, and only 19% consumer mobile devices, which I think is good news overall.
That's very good news, yeah.
Because we just always discourage that consumer devices as being useful for work uses like this.
Yep.
But still, only half of them are doing the enterprise devices, which tells me like, hey, there's some wiggle room and some opportunity there. Next up, we asked about inventory management in particular, because we know that can be a big issue for grocers, and we asked them to give us their top inventory management challenges. Far and away, number one was managing orders with multiple suppliers. Completely understand that. You've got several different types of people dropping off stuff to your stores when you're in grocery. It was over 50% said that they were concerned about that. Some of the other ones were timely reorders and restocks, expired or underutilized goods. About 37% said that they were concerned about that with their inventory management. And then you also had things like product differentiation and returns that challenged at least a third or more of respondents too. So looking at these three challenges, these inventory management, the mobile devices in use, and the parts of their business that they want to improve with technology, what stood out to you?
Yeah, this one's there's a lot to unpack here, but I started off with kind of thinking about the customer engagement and the whole move in retail to really do things that engage the customer, for lack of a better term. And it's hard to think about that in a grocery setting, if you will, because there's just a multitude of products, and it's not like you're walking into a clothing store where you can have an associate engage on the particular product. It's just a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, grocery stores are a little bit different, but there's a lot of concern over customer engagement, even in the grocery store. I mean, there's such, to me, it's such a premium is called out in this survey around, just the desire of the grocery store to have good customer engagement. I mean, it comes through in this question. It comes through in other questions as well. And so when you think about it, so what's the opportunity? Well, I go back to what we sell. It's the mobile devices. It's enabling the associate at the store level, walking through. Even though it's a more complicated mix of products, you can still enable the associates with mobile products to maybe highlight products, or if there's a question that a customer might have when they're going through an aisle. This alert or kind of leads me towards technologies like interactive technologies, the use of interactive technologies in certain areas, like the wine shop and pairing, or the meat location and pairing with wines, or you just got to think innovatively like that of how can we engage the customer, give them more information at their fingertips type of a thing. And I think that's kind of where the technology will obviously keep driving that kind of stuff. I don't know. So those were my things, at least that jumped out in those first couple questions. Now, what challenges related to inventory management? Managing orders with multiple suppliers. Yeah. I mean, think about the nightmare behind the scenes of a grocery store. I mean, it's got to be mind numbing to think about all these different vendors bringing in all kinds of different stuff.
Yep.
I know our technology plays really, really well there. Really surprised to see only 81% are using barcode scanners. What are the other 20% doing? Is it a tablet, or is it like a clipboard with they're checking off the deliveries like I used to
I hope not,
at the pizzeria? Oh yeah, we got the 3 cases of cheese and the. I mean, that was
unless maybe
like
that among
items.
that 50% that said they're using the enterprise mobile devices, that maybe they're using all ones that have like the embedded barcode scanners.
Okay, I'll give you
They
that.
didn't separate that particularly.
I'll give you that.
Again, I'm giving a benefit of the doubt, but it is entirely likely that there is a not insignificant number of these grocery chains that are still doing some very manual processes, all things considered. They're probably also the same ones that are like, nope, I'm not offering this, I'm not offering that, I'm not offering any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't offer anything. I got groceries.
But anyway, going back to like the engagement and the overall customer satisfaction, a lot of times it's the out of stock items, right?
Yep.
If it's not in there. So, you just got to think about it. If you're approaching a grocery store, look for solutions that can enable management who might be wandering the floor and seeing some out items. If they had a quick way to communicate to the back, hey, we got to restock this or we got to restock that type of a thing, that's going to make for a better experience of the next shopper that comes by and sees, well, the Ritz crackers are out, so I guess they don't have any Ritz crackers. No, they're there. They're in the back. Exactly. We just got to get them out.
Or my favorite thing is when they've put something on like some kind of an end cap display and it's not in the aisle where it's supposed to be, or it's out there, but they've got it on the end cap that you didn't see because you didn't happen to walk that way.
That's right.
Or even better, my favorite one's also, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, where you get the pickup or the delivery and they tell you they're out of something, and then you go in the store yourself like a day or two later and you find it yourself right there. I'm like, did this just happen to get restocked?
No, that
or
drives my
did
wife
you
crazy.
just not? And granted, I get it. It's people that are still doing this. At the end of the day, until we get the robots that are doing all this stuff, it is somebody, and I see them in the store pushing these giant carts and checking out their lists and finding stuff. And if something's not where they expect it to be, I get that they're going to have a problem, finding it potentially as well too. So I understand there are some challenges around that, but again, I think that's also where a robust and smart type of inventory system could potentially help out with that kind of stuff, where it can identify like, hey, this isn't in its normal section. There's an additional placement in the store right now where you can find this particular item as well.
Yep. So. Now, before we leave from this, I was curious on the first question around, again, the question is, your business technology, are you most interested in improving? Sustainability and food waste was way down at the bottom, 13%. But that seems to conflict a little later in this report where, there is some interest. I think that you're seeing some generational influence here around bringing sustainability to the grocery store and things of that nature. But it was interesting how low it ranked here.
I was surprised by that too.
Almost not on the radar kind of, 13% is not nothing, but it's pretty low.
It'd be one thing, like, I think you just to ask a general like sustainability type question in a lot of, businesses, and theirs might be a mixed response of like, I don't know. I mean, sure, we know, but we're not really that focused on it right now. In groceries, where again, food waste is a particular big issue, and making sure that you're not losing inventory, that someone could buy. To me, that feels like that would be something a little bit more important, but I guess wasn't something, or maybe it's just something that they don't see a technology answer for.
That's a good point there, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe we don't have the camera technology to a point where it's saying, "Hey, your bananas are rotting.
Exactly,
Run a special."
Yeah, exactly.
50% off.
That, and I mean, again, could represent an opportunity. It might mean like, hey, maybe they just don't know what technology can do to help out with that particular problem, and it's up to you to start having conversations about that and explain how cameras or sensors, could potentially assist with that
real-time digital signage where you can promote these types of things. At the flick of a wrist, and it's like, oh no, we got to get this stuff moving.
Hey, all the strawberries are going to go bad in a week.
We don't have time to print a sign.
Right
no. Like flip that switch right now and get a
Let's do a 50-cent coupon and
move it on.
The hell of it on our signage.
There you go.
So. All right. So then the last batch of questions we asked, we wanted to just kind of, understand other stuff technology related in the grocery industry, basically kind of learn a little bit more about their expectations around, what's going to make an impact on their industry, their perceptions of how technology can influence or how much it might cost, and the difficulties to implement. So one of the questions we asked was, which emerging technology do you believe will have the biggest impact on the grocery industry? The 4 options were AI and machine learning, robotics for inventory management, blockchain for food traceability, which again was kind of a low response, and VR and AR technology. Now, 38% for both AI, machine learning, and robotics gave that response as their primary that they thought would have the biggest impact. The blockchain for food traceability, only 17%, and only 8% the VR and AR technology.
People aren't buying into that old VR, AR, right? I mean,
really,
it's like...
And I think I get it, because I don't feel like... I feel like we as consumers aren't even yet.
No.
Like, if it's a technology we as consumers are having trouble wrapping our head around still, you can't expect businesses to want to get really
Which is
involved
curious because, I feel a little bit like, maybe we're not giving it enough. Meaning, everybody walks around with their phone, right? And you can have an AR experience if you just, if there's a QR code and I just turn on my camera and now I can have a more in-depth experience about that particular brand or that particular product. But people aren't doing it yet. It's like the vendors aren't doing it. The people walking around.
If Pokemon Go couldn't launch this into the stratosphere, then I don't know what's going to.
That's fair. But I'm comforted to see that AI and machine learning. So
I thought that too.
I wonder if is the AI back of house, on the analytics? Is it going to be front of house? Don't know. And then really surprised. Honestly, I was surprised to see robotics for inventory at 38%.
I will say, I think when the full question about the AI and machine learning did reference identifying stock issues or automating processes. So that was in particular.
Well, then there you go.
I figure. If nothing else, we were like, hey, let's angle this a little bit towards what we know that we are. Our folks are out there selling and the solutions that we currently have out there in the market.
But look at all that interest in robotics for inventory management. That's wild.
Yeah.
And I think what you're seeing are obviously the robots that can go down the aisle and they can do the quick scan that I was just talking about instead of the manager walking through and saying, hey, these items are out. Well, the robot's doing it, and it just communicates back house, restock, empty type of stuff. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Yep.
I concur.
Yep.
Next, we asked some questions about where do you think there will be challenges to implement those 5 particular, or 4 particular emerging technologies. And, this is kind of a scattered grid you can check out for yourself.
I love this grid.
Where they saw these challenges. But the 3 that really stood out were system compatibility. That was one that came up high on every one of these options. Expertise and installation time. And I saw those and were like, well, hey, all 3 of those are things that a great VAR partner is probably going to address. They're going to make sure, and if there's an ISV partner or a robotics partner, whatever it is that's working with them, they're going to make sure the system compatibility is taken care of. They're going to bring the expertise to help you get these solutions up and running, and they're going to help you figure out how to do the installs without messing with your business or putting you in some kind of downtime.
You just hit the nail on the head there, brother.
Look at that. That to me is like, that screams like, hey, if you want an in on this kind of stuff, you need to explain to them how you can make all those.
There's your 3 pain points. There it is.
Go away for them when you're.
So you got to have a plan for system compatibility. Got to have a plan to get it installed in a timely manner, right? And with some expertise. There you go.
That's it. You do that, and you're probably gonna win.
Well, you just mitigated like what just back of the envelope about 75% of the concern. Of these folks.
I would hope so. Yeah.
And if you can wipe 75% of the concern off the table, you got a pretty good chance, I think.
I'd say you're that much closer to getting to winning some business there.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
All right. So then we asked, if cost was not a factor, what part of your operation would you first modernize with technology? Now, the top response responses here were inventory and stock, which again makes sense from everything we saw
Sure does.
earlier.
Yep.
The customer experience, again, checks out with everything we heard about earlier. Delivery and the online and mobile experience. So those were the top 4 responses. Still good responses for all of them. I will say I did find it interesting on the low end side, only 4.2% said that they would modernize their point of sale or checkout.
Yeah. Right.
Which again kind of a little bit conflicts with the self-checkout thing. Maybe in a way.
Oh, you think they were lumping that in? I don't know that they were lumping that in.
Maybe not. Grocery pickup was only at 3%. In-store displays ranked at 5%. Its store layout and design down to 11%. So those were the smaller end of the scale. I like this question because there was a broad selection of responses here. There wasn't like an overwhelming, like the highest ranked one was the inventory and stock management. That was only 20% that said if cost was an option, that's the first thing they would go after. So if nothing else, there's a lot of different potential opportunities. It's not just like, well, if I can't win inventory management, then I can't win anything. There's a lot of different things that everybody prioritized as like, this is my number one thing I would do if I had the ability to. So I feel like that gives you a lot of different potential ways to get into a grocer and into winning some business with them.
Well, but this is an indicator, right? Like if I had all the money in the world, 20% of the people are going to put it towards inventory and stock management. Yeah. That's a huge opportunity for a lot of resellers out there. You know, I know the online mobile ordering, that's not in the wheelhouse of a typical reseller. Right. You know, they're more interested in the hardware and stuff like that. So table that one. But you know, customer experience, certainly through digital signage and stuff like that is in there. This is the one where the home delivery, again, it just seems to be a lot of interest for home delivery, but I had a hard time segmenting in my mind, you know, in-store pickup and in home delivery. There's a lot of interest in home delivery. Obviously, 16% said they would throw a lot of money at it. Than the pickup, right, exactly.
I wonder if that's a matter of that most stores, again, during the pandemic, figured out some way to handle pickup. Like I feel like that, like it's something that even the most, you know, cash-strapped or low-tech or, you know, not a lot of ability to make these kind of shifts, maybe they were at least able to figure out the pickup portion of things, but not necessarily the delivery part. Maybe that was a next step that's a little bit harder than, hey, call us up or send something in or do something on an app or whatever, and we can put a pickup order and you come here and get it versus, all right, now I've got to engage drivers. Now I've got to deal with, you know, delivery times and, you know, tracking,
all that,
you know, the actual drop off and you know, scheduling and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if that is a different kind of hurdle that some stores,
that if they had unlimited funds, they feel like they could conquer that.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is something maybe it's the Amazon effect, and they just feel the pressure that Amazon and the fact that you can order a lot of stuff through Whole Foods and just get it delivered, you know, next day
and
for
something
free.
That, and probably in a lot of, depending again, these stores and what level they're at, in most regions, there are probably some titans of grocery that have already mastered this and are doing it pretty regularly and actively. And I'm sure in their mind, it's difficult to compete with that when there's already someone who's kind of like, you know, again, I guess if someone's in the mind like, hey, I want my groceries delivered to me, are they just automatically going to the big dogs and not even thinking about some of the small stores? And that's just a hurdle that they're trying to, that they don't know how to address if they don't have the ability to actually address it there too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. What do you think about only 8% for employee operations?
As always, I feel like that happens a lot. We do these retail surveys.
The little guy gets nothing.
And it's always like, I might do something to benefit my employees. Again, some of this stuff, though, I feel like if done properly is going to benefit the employees.
Of course.
But it doesn't mean your employees
It wasn't the lowest ranking one.
No, it wasn't. But it doesn't
mean
they can't
Point of sale was the lowest ranking one.
So.
Oh, man.
All right. So there's some good stuff there. Let's see. What else did we have on the other issues and other concerns side? So we asked about some biggest considerations when selecting technology. So we basically said, hey, you know, what essentially when you're deciding on some IT investments, what are the top 2 things that are most important to you that solution needs to address as far as your business is concerned?
Yep.
And the top of that list was customer experience.
Yep.
Again,
there you go.
Big one. The supply chain.
Yep.
Competition and food safety.
There it is. See, that's a little dichotomy off of the one up above.
31% said that food safety and sustainability.
Oh, now we're interested in it. All of a sudden, we're back. That's back to, yeah.
I don't get that one either. I'm just like, all right, wait a minute. So you do think it's important that your solutions address something about that, but you actually weren't all that concerned about it when we asked you about it earlier.
But it's interesting because they've bucketed it within the IT. So they're viewing it as an IT concern, right? There's technology needed to enable this or make it better, type of a thing. And so, yeah, and there's a desire to have, that's a top priority. When you're over 30%, that's, that's a top priority.
It is, yeah. All these actually ended up pretty high. I mean, we had, what was the customer experience and loyalty was 46%, 39% said the improving the supply chain efficiencies. But even on the, quote, lower end, the bottom two responses were security, but that was still 28% said they wanted security to be addressed. 23% said employee experience and retention. I guess they are throwing a little bone back there to the employees too. So to me, like I look at this again, like, man, there's different types of opportunities here. Like every one of them is expecting to address these things, and I think it's going to be important, if you're working with a grocer and you're having discovery calls too, or conversations or visiting in store, asking questions of them and their associates, that you're finding out like what are the things that you want to make sure, are being addressed in your business, and making sure the solution you're offering does address those, or at least pointing out how they're going to, for those particular top needs.
Good point.
Next, we asked about some top grocery challenges. This is more of a broad. What do you consider to be the biggest challenge? Now,
this wasn't open-ended
in the near future. It was not.
So
we gave them five options to choose from here. And in order, the ranking was at 25% of folks said that food safety and quality standards and regulation were important for them. Again, seems to be a big deal, despite saying earlier that was not something they were looking to immediately address. Pricing and inflation. We get that, obviously. Changing customer preferences and dietary trends. So all three of those ranked around the same spot, 25, 24, and 23% for those three. Not far behind competition from the e-commerce giants at 20%. And last, ESG compliance at 7% there. But those were some of the big challenges. And again, I think if you're talking solutions, you need to be thinking about these particular challenges and how your solutions are going to help address them. And maybe you can't do anything about pricing and inflation. But then again, it could be also, you can also address the fact of like, hey, a good stock management or inventory management solution can help with that, with some of that, where it gives you a little more flexibility with pricing potentially, knowing what you do and don't have in stock, or knowing what's in demand right now, and tackling those price increases as they come along quickly.
Or for number 3, changing customer preferences, which I can't even imagine being a grocer and trying to keep up with the whims of society and what's in, what's out, what's hot. I mean, you need, to me, that screams AI, right? You need back end analytics helping you make some of these decisions and looking at these mountains of data, of point of sale, data that you have, so that you can comb out, we're seeing an uptick in these types of leaks for whatever reason are starting to sell, because who knew? There was a TikTok influencer that said that was, the thing to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he finished building out like a whole nice new cheese section or whatever, and then suddenly there's like a new fad, like no dairy diet or something that comes
exactly.
out. And that space just, starts getting cobwebs on it, So related to the changing customer preferences, we did ask what consumer behavior trends do you think will most influence your business or industry. 25%.
This one I believe.
25% said the same answer. Said there's two different answers that both got 25%. That was increased demand for organic or sustainable foods and demand for ethically sourced and locally produced foods. 24% right behind that said preference for convenience, time-saving options, meal kits, and etc. And to a much smaller extent, you had like plant-based, alternative protein products, home delivery demand. So the top 3 there were, especially those top 2. The organic, sustainable, ethically sourced, locally produced foods, stuff that's in high demand. If you remember when we had Jim Hilton on a while back talking about the whole food supply chain or whatever, and how big of a deal it's becoming to have traceability from start to finish. Again, that's the kind of stuff that is impacting the grocers, because people are coming in and expecting that, hey, I want to know where this came from, what's in it, how long it's traveled here. Is it local? Is it from here? Is it from there? They want to know all the things there are to know about it. And that's clearly something that grocers are paying attention to.
Very much so.
And saying, hey, we think this is the stuff that really is going to make an impact on how our business moves forward from here.
Yep. And that'll go to the vendor eventually, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the grocers are seeing it. They see the demand for ethically sourced and locally produced goods. I mean, all these things are feel-good stuff that people want. And now it's going to be incumbent upon the manufacturers, the food manufacturers, to start stepping up. But it's interesting that those really rung out here.
Exactly. So a lot of good stuff there. All right, we've dug through a lot here. And again, if you want your own taste and look at the data, go to the show notes, check out the link for this particular blog, subscribe to the BlueStar Nation blog.
Hey,
too,
there's an idea.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, hey, as always, this is the portion of the show where we thank our sponsors. And of course, I'd like to give a shout out once again to Intel and HP for sponsoring this particular survey. And hey, as always, if you like the show, if you liked what we talked about here today, if you liked this deep dive into customer topics and end user data.
Well, first off, go to nation.bluestarinc.com and get this information.
Get this information.
There you go.
Sign up for the newsletter so you don't miss these stories when they come out. But also, tell us what you want to hear about. This isn't just a tell us what you want to hear about on the podcast thing. This is a what kind of data do you want to get? Because we have a lot of great sponsors and a lot of our vendor lines that are interested in these surveys.
Yeah.
But they also sometimes are like, hey, what should we do a survey on? What do people want to know about?
That's right.
You can tell us and them that so that we're going out and getting useful data and good stuff on end users that can make a difference for you and your business. So don't hesitate, as always, to reach out and tell us what you want to hear about in those surveys, what you want to hear about on the podcast. There's always a link in our show notes. You can drop ideas to us. We'll send you a TEConnect podcast t-shirt just for doing that.
Yes.
And of course, as always, you can always find us if you want to reach out to us on LinkedIn, the BlueStar LinkedIn page, or you can email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, Neil, let's wrap up here. I mean, this is where we always do value to the VAR.
Yep.
And I guess simplifying this, all this stuff that we've talked about, what are your top takeaways from this survey? What really stood out to you?
I got two, and it comes around the emerging technologies that they believe, meaning grocers will believe, will have a biggest impact on the grocery industry. Number one was AI and machine learning, and right there was robotics. So, I know we talk about it a lot, and we've been trying to get our community, our ecosystem to understand that there's a need to start getting yourself involved in these technologies. Start reaching out to the partners that are involved in the AI, that are involved in machine learning, that can use existing cameras to see, some of the analytics that can be pulled from it, whether it's theft detection to other things that are happening, or if it's the robotics that are happening in front of store and doing the inventory counts. These things are out there. We're trying to be as leading edge as we can on these fronts. Obviously, there's a demand from the marketplace, a lot of interest in it, and we got to start fulfilling that need. That is opportunity, right? So,
completely agree.
I know that it's a little bit of foggy right now. There's a lot of different solutions out there, but we're all navigating this sea together, and I think we'll get there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say one as an extra plug for the blog here is if you go and check out the bottom of this survey, it's got some in summary opportunities in grocery that
nice.
gives us our additional thoughts and tips on how to take into some of this data and what you should be doing. The one thing I'll add though is just I always feel like stuff like this can make for great conversation starters.
Yep.
If you're a consultative sales type person, if you're someone that likes to engage and talk and discover and learn about them and understand
what a great point,
what's going on with them, this is the kind of stuff you can take in and say, hey, you know what? I just read this survey that said that X percentage of grocers are interested in or think that AI machine learning is going to have the biggest impact on their business. Do you agree?
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
20% of people said if they had unlimited funds,
they
would look into modernizing their stock management, perhaps.
Exactly.
Is that something you'd like to do?
Is that you? Would you do the same thing?
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Good stuff that you can start a conversation with and get them talking about this particular subject yourself. Add to the data that you already have, or maybe they're adamant about no, I don't agree with that. I think that's BS. I think it's X. And then again, you've got a conversation starter that's opening the door to potential opportunities in business for you.
Yep.
Good stuff. Again, go check out the survey, the full data. I think you'll find some other interesting nuggets in there we didn't cover, and some nice insights and takeaways that I think we've got there too.
Very nice, very nice. Yes.
All right, Dean, let's wrap up as always with What's Tech Connecting with You. This is where we get to talk about anything in the world of business, tech, science, innovation, pop culture, random stories that we just feel like chatting about because, we just like to talk about stuff. And why not one extra thing every episode? So What's Tech Connecting with You?
Well, how about answering some really age-old questions through science? And the question here is, why is ice slippery?
Okay.
Did you even think that was up for debate? Well, apparently it's been debated for like the last 170 years. Why is ice slippery? Well, they finally found out the answer. So atomic level images reveal that the first few layers of ice begin to melt around minus 240 degrees Fahrenheit. Far below the bulk freezing point, and that helps, to make ice slippery. So you just got these really thin layers of water vapor there that makes ice slippery all the way down to 240 degrees minus 240 degrees Fahrenheit. So believe it or not, this was a hotly debated thing. Like people why is it that ice is slippery? Because it shouldn't have those properties. Or in certain forms, it doesn't have these properties. So with the help of a temperature change experiments that was conducted, they were finally able to get down to, on the atomic scale level, discovered that indeed that process starts at minus 240 degrees, and that's what makes it slippery. There's just this little layer there that continues to accumulate. So who knew that was being hotly debated? Why is ice slippery? Or is that one of those surveys that you hear the government funded a research, and it's like, are we really funding
trillions of dollars on it or something?
You're like, 10 million.
We were going to look into some of that cancer stuff, but we decided we really need to figure out why ice was slippery this week. So,
well, this came out of China, so let them spend the money on stuff like that.
Sure,
we'll figure out.
Yeah. Maybe I don't feel so bad about the race against China if that's what they're spending their time worried about.
And before I go, I got one more for you.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the phrase digital decay as it relates to online?
I think so. It sounds like a familiar phrase.
New research from the Pew Research Center in U.S. concluded that 38% of all web pages that existed in 2013 are no longer accessible due to the phenomenon they are calling digital decay.
Okay.
So apparently, if you've got web information that's 11 years or older, and that, I guess that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like servers go old and then you start getting 404 errors. But I've never heard or seen, quantifiable, but 38% of the information that was there is now gone.
Fascinating.
And they're calling that digital decay.
Huh.
So you've just got this erosion, this digital erosion that's happening due to,
is that something like
there you go, digital decay.
Future digital paleontologists were used to figure out how old a website is?
Yes.
Looking at the digital decay rate, this site existed approximately 4,000 years ago.
Yeah. But when you think about
it's resurrected.
We always say, well, the internet has this vast, all this collection of data. Right? And this is what we're training everything on. Well, if it's 11 years old, 40% of that's gone.
Okay, wait a minute. Does that mean that the AIs might be training on decayed data or something?
Yes, right.
Is that why we're getting bizarre response? There was something recently where for a how to make how to make cheese stay on pizza or whatever, and AI recommended adding a little bit of glue to the mixture.
Yeah, a little glue. Just an eighth of an ounce or something like that.
Maybe that website that it got it from was decaying. On a related note,
all right, sir.
As we talk about all the ways that AI can go wrong, how would you feel about AI deciding whether you should be admitted into the hospital or not?
Oh, wow.
From the ER.
Yeah, no. That's feeling creepy.
It kind of is to me too, but apparently there is a study in play about this.
Okay.
So this is a study that was published in the Journal of American Medical Informatics Association.
Oh man,
they did a pretty big study here too. They used OpenAI's GPT-4 to analyze medical records from more than 864,000 ER visits across 7 Mount Sinai hospitals. And then
800,000 visits. That's a big pool of data.
Plus.
Okay.
And essentially, basically, we're asking it all right, looking at the available data of the ER admissions and everything about why they were there and the tests that were run and all that stuff.
All right.
How many of them should have been admitted into the hospital?
Okay.
Obviously, knowing the real answer. Now, the real answer was 18% of those visits actually ended up being admitted. It said the large language model had an accuracy rate of 83%. So not perfect.
Not perfect.
But
I'd hate to be that 17%.
I
But
know,
anyway,
that's
go
why I
ahead.
went there too. And even someone even called out and said like, hey, getting to 100% would be very difficult because of the random nature of medical emergencies and things that might be decided upon by a doctor.
Right.
I feel like we had a conversation about that recently too. It's easy to, like a doctor can look at something. I think it was Key Marie that mentioned this, that there's that learned level that a doctor has they bring to the table.
When
like,
they says,
sure,
and he's,
I
right.
can get the list of symptoms, and you could feed that into an AI, and it could tell you like it's just like when you go on WebMD or something.
That's right. That's
It'll tell you what's supposedly wrong with you.
It could be this.
But the doctor can take that and apply their additional experience and their thinking and their thought processes and come up with potentially different solutions. So at that level, I wouldn't expect there to be 100% accuracy. Now, they were pointing out that, hey, maybe this could still be beneficial in a way, though, to help make some additional decisions, that maybe using that data and spitting out a recommendation that then doctors can
I could see that happening, right? Like some kind of scale.
Exactly.
Hey, this person clearly is not, a huge threat or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And
they were hoping that maybe at worst case scenario or best case scenario, I guess maybe it's helping out with like some of the logistical and administrative parts of it or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
To maybe give a better heads up to, to the hospital of like, hey, you should potentially expect an influx of X many patients based on who's come in the ER in the last hour or something like that. Or it's time to free up some beds or something because, or get some folks checked out a little bit faster because, the rates are rising and the expectation is that more of these folks are going to get admitted. I don't know. And to your point, I did feel a little squicky about it. And there were some folks that, some other doctors that pointed out like, man, I don't know if this is a route that we wanted to go down here. There could be some potential problems with this. I also think about, sometimes you hear about issues of, especially when it comes sometimes to women or people of color where, their particular beliefs about what's going on with them and the doctor's expectations and the doctor's, decisions are in conflict when they shouldn't be. I'm like, is that the data that could be like? Did someone not get admitted that should have that was not represented in what that AI was learning from?
Right. Yes, exactly.
So,
AI bias.
Yeah, exactly. So just a little bit of concern there, around that one. I don't think I just put it this way. I don't want to go to the ER and then them say like, I mean, it seems like you're in a lot of pain and we might need to do something for you, but I'm going to go over to ChatGPT here and see what they have to say.
If you had told me that it was within 99.999 of what, then maybe, but 17% is a big delta.
That really is. Yes.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. I wouldn't
17% of 800,000. That's a lot.
I wouldn't want to be that person that got turned away because, the AI model was like, nah.
That's right. Yeah.
Not feeling it with you.
You 150,000 people. Sorry. Missed the boat.
Sorry about your luck there. So, all right. That is what's TEConnecting with us. It is time for us to unplug. So until next time, make sure your doctor isn't consulting ChatGPT.
That's right.
Go to your grocery stores and help them win beat some challenges and take down the big dogs in competition. And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by Elo. Elo has completely redesigned their iSeries 3 with Intel, adding the dependability that businesses need. These brilliant and beautiful interactive displays feature a modular design and endless versatility with sizes of 15, 17, 22, and 24 inches, a slate version, and square or wide aspect options. Every iSeries 3 offers 10 Touch Pro PCAP, a fanless IP54 rated design, edge-to-edge glass, and Intel's 12th generation processors for reliable enterprise-grade security. These are pretty sturdy.
You got that.
This is better than just like the random TV you have in your living room.
Yeah.
You think I'll just throw that up in my business.
This ain't rinky-dink.
No, this is going to be much more powerful.
That's right.
Than that.
Yeah.
Available in models that support Windows, Chrome OS Flex, and Linux. The iSeries 3 is also compatible with Elo's Z stands and Z Series Elo Pods for self-service and point-of-sale applications. So when you're out going to some of those grocers and they're telling you they want their self-checkout that they can't get a hold of, maybe an iSeries 3 would be a nice start for that process.
And here's the good news: they don't need unlimited funds. They can implement this technology within their budget.
That's right. There you go. Learn more about the redesigned iSeries 3 by checking the link in the show notes or contacting the BlueStar Elo team.